June 10th meeting of the Albany Utility Board to order. If I could start by calling the roll. Dr. Adams?
Present.
Ms. Battle?
Here.
Mr. Deal?
Here.
Slow?
Here.
Here is here. Does any member of the board wish to make an opening remark?
No.
If not,
Nothing.
okay, we have two speakers signed up this morning. Is Mr. Darrell Scott with us?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Scott. Do we have a timer? Okay. Okay. Mr. Scott, you have the floor. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys giving me the floor. Yes, my name is Darrell Scott, and good morning to the board. I am before you today to speak about this the residential garbage fee that's been assessed to all the Albany water, gas, and light customers. I own a home at 321 Cannon Avenue, and I've owned it for roughly 15, 16 years. But I don't reside there, and I'm not a Georgia resident. I live in Florida, but I maintain the electric and water service there, to prevent the home from decaying, because if you just leave a house just sitting there, it has no water, no electric running to it, like, the wires and all, over a period of time, they can decay. Like, I just know that from experience. And I also maintain the electric also, because I have a security system there, to keep, it's secure. My monthly usage for electric and water, basically demonstrates that I don't reside there, and no one's residing there. When I bought the home in 2005, I had requested that they remove that charge, the residential garbage fee charge, off my bill, and they were able to do that. And the garbage container was also removed, like the actual receptacle. The garbage bin that you take to the road and back to your house, that was removed. So a few statements ago, I noticed that the charge had been added back onto the bill. Now, I've called the Albany Water, Gas, and Light Commission, the telephone number, on quite a few occasions, and they were saying that it was a change in the ordinance, but I spoke before the city commission, and a couple of months ago during one of their meetings, and it's not a change to the ordinance. It seems like it's a policy set by the board, like this, like it's a new policy. So I've spoken with Demetrius Young, Commissioner Young, and he, basically told me to get with Ms. Williams and see if I can talk to you guys about the issue. Now, I'm not protesting there being a charge for the service. I understand that, the idea behind it, but if you're not utilizing the service, if you demonstrate that you're not staying there and no one's staying there, then I'm thinking that a base charge would be more, that'd be a better idea, just to have a base charge or just a staggered, charge for people that can demonstrate, okay, well, the house is vacant, but I do still have water. I still have the other services. Because my bill had always been about $30 to $40 a month. But once the charge got added on, that was $32 and some cent just alone. So my bill went from like 30 to 35, maybe $40 to like a little over $70. So that's a, substantial increase, especially for somebody that's not even, like, I can't even take my bin out to the road or take it back from the road, you know, because I'm not even there and no one's there.
One
So-
minute, Mr. Scott.
Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead. You have another minute.
Okay. So basically what I'm asking is that, you know, the board consider instituting like a policy where people that have demonstrated that they don't reside at the place and no one resides there, that they could just have a base charge and not charge people for services that they really don't use. So with that, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I hope it can be talked about and instituted. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Any questions for Mr. Scott? Dr. Adams?
You're muted, Doc.
None.
Ms. Battle?
No question.
Mr. Deal?
None.
Mr. Lowe?
No questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott. I think Mr. Logue had brought this up one time before. Maybe I'm incorrect, but as I recall, the recommendation was made that we have some properties where there's renovation being done and the transition of ownership, and people were actually generating refuse, and the service was being delivered, and we didn't have an account there. I think what Mr. Scott's proposing would certainly be reasonable, just having a base fee if somebody can demonstrate that there's not a residence at the property. But can we just put that on a upcoming agenda? That might be a, excuse me? Okay, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Kiwanis Reed, Mr. Reed, you with us? Is Mr. Reed with us?
Miss Reed.
Excuse me? Okay. Oh. The next item on the agenda is consideration of the minutes from the May 13th meeting. The minutes have been circulated. Did any member note any errors or omissions in the minutes? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? If not, we'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, the next item on the agenda is consideration of a recommendation to amend the contract with ESG to allow ESG to purchase a crane, and also to increase the payment to ESG based on the CPI adjustment of 3.46%. Mr. Hughes? You the podium? We don't have the podium. Okay.
Is there? Could you get the podium up for him? Actually, be better if you bring him a little bit closer, because he needs to use his phone.
Can we get Jeff on the camera?
We don't have a camera in here.
We don't?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
Okay, Mayor, just going through the agenda item. As you stated, there are two components to this. One is the CPI is allowed every year based on the government, the CPI numbers, and that calculates 3.46% between last year and this year. And then also the crane, for them to provide the crane, and the city provides the crane.
I can't hear him. Can y'all?
Yeah, I'm having trouble as well. I was just trying to turn my speakers, but they're up all the way.
Okay, what about now?
Testing, can you hear me now?
We can hear you,
Yes,
Mayor.
much better.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I just have to closer. Okay, again, the item is for two component things. One is the CPI increase, which is allowed by the contract for an annual CPI increase based on the government published numbers, which is 3.46, and also for ESD to provide a crane, which was previously provided by the city, and is no longer available. So, recommended.
I'm sorry, I have trouble understanding.
Okay, Ms. Williams telling us, I'll tell you what, y'all want to start over and let Mr. Hughes take my place?
Yes.
Okay. You have to speak with the mayor's voice.
All right. Try it one more time here. This agenda item is kind of a two-part thing. The first is the CPI increase, the annual increase is allowed by the contract based on the government published numbers, and that calculated out to be 3.46 for this current renewal. And the second part is to have the ESG provide a crane that was previously provided by the city. We've run numbers and they can provide it at a cheaper cost than we can. So we recommend approval.
What happened to the crane that we had? Did it just wear out?
We had an incident where we had some damage to it, and ESG has compensated the city for that damage, but it's no longer serviceable. So either we had to replace the crane or have them to provide one as part of the contract. And after running the numbers, the crane is pretty much just used by them for servicing the lift stations and the plant equipment. So the recommendation is for them to provide the crane rather than the city going back and purchasing another.
Mr. Hughes, did they damage the crane? Were they using the crane when it was damaged?
That is correct, and they have reimbursed the city for the cost of the crane.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, I do have a question. Since they were using the crane when it was damaged, do we come out even on this deal, or are we responsible for a certain amount?
No, this was handled by our risk management department, and the city was reimbursed for the full value of the crane.
Okay.
How much was that, Mr. Hughes?
It was over $100,000. I can't remember the exact number.
Wow.
Provided an email. We can give that number to you, but I don't have it off the top of my head.
No, that's all right. That's a good ballpark.
What's the cost of the crane?
What the value of the crane was?
Yeah, we can get that from risk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
What's the cost of a brand new crane?
$175,000. 275. Sorry.
275,000?
Yes, ma'am.
In the presentation, so the new crane is $375. I assumed that one reason we're going to pay them an additional $50,000 a year for the crane, but I assume one reason for allowing this amendment to the contract is we don't have anybody with the expertise to operate the crane. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I mean, we'd have a crane that we don't have anybody that can operate the crane.
Right, we'd have to get a qualified operator.
Okay, all right.
Another advantage of that, Mary, is that if we buy a crane, we own a crane that we have to maintain.
Right.
And if that crane goes down, then we don't have a crane. The way we're structuring this is we're renting a crane. That means if it goes down, that's their problem. They still need to provide a crane for us if we need it.
Okay. All right. Is any further questions? Dr. Adams? Ms. Battle?
No question.
Mr. Deal?
None.
Flo?
None.
Okay, before we take a vote, I don't know how staff has presented this. We got an email from Mr. Stock wanting to change another provision of the agreement. Is that correct, Mr. Stock?
Well, I was just pointing out, sir, that when they provided the amendment, one of the things. Oh yeah, wow, sorry. I'll put this off. Sorry about that. All right, sorry, there was an echo. One of the things that they've asked for.
Like, there's a mic right above your head.
Here, just sit right here.
No, you stay seated there. I'll just move a little closer to the phone and not talk as loud. There was a provision in the original agreement that was basically that the agreement would be a 5-year agreement. We were only 2 years into it, but in order for them to supply a crane, they asked if we could kind of basically reestablish the 5 years. And it makes sense given that they're going to make a $275,000 investment in a new piece of equipment, that they would be able to recoup it over a 5-year period. And so that's the other part of the change. Really, it doesn't really extend it that much.
Well, I have some problems with that. I think this last, was it OMG or Jacobs? Who was the last firm? Jacobs. We don't need to get in one of these interminable contracts. This provision says it renews at the end of 5 years unless you give notice. You know, if they want to extend the contract to 5 years, I don't have a problem with that. But if you look at the language here, it's the term of the agreement shall automatically renew. So if, I don't know if everybody else has Mr. Stock's email, but I would suggest we just agree to the first sentence. The term of this agreement shall be 5 years commencing on July 1st, 2021. And I mean, the issue there is, you know, at some point in time, you need to bid this work out. The operational needs of our system might change over time. I mean, we don't need to, we need to look at it. And if you get beyond where these automatic renewals, you don't put the project, you don't put the job out for bid. You know, there's not an evaluation of how good the company is doing. So I just think that's the way we ought to approach it. But that's my thoughts on that. And anybody else want to be heard? Dr. Adams? Ms. Battle?
I totally agree with I totally agree.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I passed you over. Okay. Dr. Adams concurs. Ms. Battle?
I concur, but I do have a question for the city manager, Mr. Carter. When you guys have these type of contracts, and I'm sure it's not the first time that you've entered into something that says automatic renewal, how do you guys monitor that? The mayor pointed out, you know, the work performance of the company, all of that. How do you guys monitor that before the automatic renewal occurs, to kind of like put the brakes on that to discuss? How do you do that internally?
Thank you for asking the question. That is something that I was going to address after everybody had an opportunity to talk. That although the contract says automatic renewal, we don't automatically renew them just, blindly. We do monitor those contracts and we evaluate the work of the contractor. If the work is subpar or we have reason to believe that we want to do something different, we opt out of that automatic renewal. We don't just let it happen unless we concur that we want it to happen. And then we have to bring it back to you guys anyway for another renewal.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mr. Deal?
I agree with you 100%. I think that, at the end of 5 years, we need to perhaps renegotiate or look at it.
Ms. Lowe?
Well, a couple observations and then a question for Nathan Davis. Maybe we take that one first. This seems to be a fairly significant change to the agenda item. And can we do that?
Oh, well, it is a substantial change, but there is an escape clause that says unless canceled by either party within 120 days prior to the initial term or any subsequent.
I'm talking about from notice to the public perspective.
Oh.
You say it because we've made a change to what was publicized to that legal report.
To the agenda for today at today's meeting.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. If the notices went out and people have a chance to come in and hear what's going on at the meeting.
Okay, so it doesn't matter that we actually change the agenda item on the fly.
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I agree with you, Mayor. I think it's fairly evident with what we're having to do with the separation that things are likely to change with the operations of the system over the next 5 years. And I'm also like you that I don't like these automatic renewals. I know we have the opportunity to opt out. I would rather us have to take action to renew as opposed to taking action to not renew. So I'm with you. I think we should agree that we do it for 5 years beginning July 1.
Okay.
Can I offer something?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Stott.
So the only thing I would kind of offer is that this language is in the original contract.
Okay.
So if we go back to them with this and say we're going to scratch that automatic renewal part and they don't agree, then basically we have to provide a crane.
Okay.
No, that's different from the.
No, because it would revert back to the existing contract. And under the existing contract, the city is required to provide the crane.
Okay.
So either.
All right.
I'm just saying.
There's certain things saying that they're.
Well, I mean,
after they destroyed your other crane, now they're going to go out and buy a certain model, and if that model doesn't work, y'all will rent one for them.
Yeah,
but that counts now. That ain't thing to do what we're talking about now.
It's okay. I think this is the way to do it. In point of fact, they're getting a 7-year contract as opposed to a 2-year contract. My concern, Mr. Stock, is when you don't have a sunset clause on the contract, as Mr. Lowe was mentioning, you say, well, we can get out of it with 120 days. Well, the problem is it just gets to be normal operations. I've seen it before. I think just we're all in transition here with this.
Right.
But if let's just see, I don't think ESG is going to have a problem because basically we're paying the note on that crane for 5 years, and if it's $275,000, they've got a crane that's going to be worth more than $25,000, which is what they owe on it. So, I mean, I just think that we make the recommendation with that change, and we vote on it like that. Is that agreeable with everybody?
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
What I might be saying is that they might get unhappy that the second one wasn't approved and not go along with the amendment at all. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Stockton?
Okay, well,
Are you saying that ESG may decide since we only approved one of these two changes, they might not agree to the change at all? And
Correct. And then it would revert back to.
Okay.
That's
Well,
true if they're crazy. I mean,
yeah,
they
that's-
try
well,
to do that.
I mean,
I just pointed it out as a slight risk.
Yeah.
I mean, they get a deal at almost $2 million.
yeah,
But it's still their decision to make.
Yeah,
We're
right.
provided to them, and we'll let them make their decision.
all right, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Point it out, that's all.
Okay.
I don't know.
With that, what the proposal would be
To modify the contract, no, that's not auto renew.
yeah, yes, and to approve the extra charge of $49,176 per year, which will be paid to ESG for providing the crane, and approving the increase on the CPI and modifying section 7.1 so that the contract would now be a 5-year term, understanding that we're already in the second or third year of the contract.
I think we're in the second.
Okay, it's already, so that would give them a 5-year contract. Is that agreeable?
Yes.
Okay. With that, any further discussion?
Yes. I just have an observation.
Yes, sir.
Listen, I'm in agreement with what we're going to offer, but I get a feeling that we are in a semi-hostage type situation here, and it's hard for me to believe that we don't have somebody that could be trained to be an operator of such a piece of equipment, and that to keep us from being completely in a hostage type situation here. And that's just my personal feeling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another thing about the 5-year contract, at some point in time, the city might have the expertise and the personnel to maintain the system. I assume we made the decision we couldn't do that previously, but if this, okay. Any further discussion? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the contract as discussed.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Motion. Second. I guess now the time for discussion. I'm sorry. And we'll call the question. Dr. Adams?
I feel uncomfortable with it, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Ms. Battle?
You know what I think I'd like to hear? We know that the purchase of the crane is about $275,000. So is the maintenance of the crane about $60,675 annually, or do we know that?
What do we propose as the maintenance, the annual maintenance on the crane?
They used the maintenance on the crane was from a 5-year history, and over 10 years that cost was $144,240. That includes that's maintenance. There's required inspections that are required by law for a crane. All those different types of fees that are rolled into that.
Sure.
Okay. And so what's the life expectancy for this brand new crane? $275,000.
Fucking to fleet, it would be about 10 years before it would get to a very worn condition. It's a big problem.
Okay. And the contract is 1.7 million?
1.8 is.
Yeah, 1.8 with the adjustment.
I don't know. Well, I guess to make everybody comfortable, maybe we should visit those numbers compared to the 1.8, maybe. But why do you guys think that this is the best option as opposed to us purchasing and going through that? Why do you think this is the best option, the 5-year contract?
Well, one, we're already in the contract, so this is just approving of the CPI. And then we had the issue with the crane, and doing the math on the crane, it was cheaper for them to provide the crane to us versus us provide one that we don't use. We don't have any other use for this item except to service these lift stations, which they provide the service. So we have no need for this vehicle. We owned a vehicle that we didn't really use, so to speak. No city employee ever used that.
Okay, so we're talking about for the next 5 years, because we're already in this contract?
Right. We're only in year 2, so you're really only extending the contract, the existing contract, 2 years.
Oh, okay. I guess I would have thought we would have discussed this before, but okay.
But it was discussed in 2019. Actually, yeah, 2019 was the original contract.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess it's a little too late now to, we're already in the contract. So, you know, I'm okay with the direction the city experts are saying we should go to complete this term. Of course, I agree, you know, with the mayor, the last part of the 5-year, it looks like the city also has a handle on that, but they're just not going to sign a contract blindly before bringing it back to the board. So, I mean, I'm okay with it.
Okay, so that's a yes. Mr. Deal?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Are we voting on it? Are we?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Voting.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes, and just a point of clarification, if y'all don't mind me interrupting the vote, the contract is actually for the operations and maintenance of our lift and storm stations, all of them, not just the crane. So,
correct.
You know, that's
it's actually also, sorry, it's also for the operation of the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, so it's all encompassing, and that wasn't, but that's what's included in the 1.8 million revised number, which includes the new items. But once again, my vote is yes.
Okay, the mayor votes yes, and so the record should indicate that Dr. Adams abstained and all other members of the board voted yes. The next item on the agenda is a recommendation to authorize an expenditure of $53,160 to repair 3 submersible pumps. Ms. Fields, are you speaking with this on this?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is to repair 3 pumps for one of the pump stations, and the total cost would be $53,160. Mr. Hughes is in the room to speak to those pumps.
Jeff, still with us? And awake?
I'll just stand right here.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Again, this is 3 storm pumps at Storm Station 31, which is over at McIntosh and 11th. There are 8 pumps in that station. We pulled the pumps about a month or so ago. I had 3 of them we had some concerns about, sent them off and got them evaluated, got quotes on the repairs that were necessary. And again, $53,000, that puts us over the current limit with the city manager. So we'll come to you for approval. Any questions?
I guess, Jeff, could you explain to us why we need to repair these pumps?
Again, Mayor, they're basically the stormwater pumps. They handle a good bit of the area around North Slappy, area behind the old Piggly Wiggly there, and the canal system there. Got 8 pumps. 3 of them are currently out. You know, on minor rains, it wouldn't be a problem, but if we get a hurricane come through and drops 6 inches of rain on us, we'll have some flooding issues along the canal there.
Okay. Ms. Fields, usually you tell us how many bids you received. That language isn't in here. Is this a single source project, or what's the explanation?
There weren't any bids. This was sent out to the company that normally does our repairs. So that's why there is no information about any bids. We didn't do any bids.
I can speak that, Mayor. Basically, on a lot of these pump repairs, you don't know what you have until you basically tear it apart. And that's what we do. We have several vendors that are experienced in this. They basically take the pumps apart, examine them, and determine what is good and what needs replacing. And that's what was the case here. They take it apart, do an assessment, and provide a quote to bring it back up to par.
So the cost could actually be higher than $53,160.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Because they've already examined everything.
Okay, good news. Any questions for Mr. Hughes or Ms. Fields?
This to me, Mr. Mayor, seems to be a no-brainer. And
okay.
I think we should close this by recommending that we accept the proposal from the staff.
Okay. Dr. Adams makes a motion. Is there a second?
I have a question.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay. Is there a second?
We have questions.
Okay, well, let's get into discussion. I'll second it. Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hughes, what's the age of the existing pump? This is a two-part question. And what's the cost of replacing?
Okay. The existing pumps are probably in the neighborhood 25, 30 years old. A new pump of this type would cost about $60,000 a piece. So we're getting them repaired for about a quarter to a third of the price of the new pump. It's kind of like rebuilding an engine. The housing is in good shape. There's just some of the bearings and moving parts and shafting that needs to be, and some of the propeller is going to be refurbished. These don't run all the time. They just run when they have storm events. So they generally have a pretty long life. We have a lot of storm pumps that are fairly old, and we can rebuild them usually at a substantial savings over a new pump and still have good life.
Do we know what the manufacturer said the life expectancy is?
On a storm pump, it's going to depend on how many hours it runs, and I don't have that information right now on these, but I would expect we get another 10, 15 years out of these easily.
Can you get the information?
I can give you an hours. I know on sanitary pumps, they usually run about 10,000 hours before you have to replace bearings, and seals, and that kind of thing. But I'll see if I can get that information. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ms. Loeb, do you have a question?
Yes, and it should be a fairly simple one. I noticed that the quote is for repair of the pumps and then delivery back to Albany. Is there any additional cost for reinstalling those pumps?
Yeah, on this station, because of the reach, I don't know if you're familiar with it, these pumps sit out basically on a pier in the middle of the pond, and we will have to rent a crane to reinstall them, but that's typical whenever we have to work on these.
Okay, so
it'd be another couple $1,000s for a crane to reinstall them.
Okay, but basically we're going to do the reinstallation. We don't have to hire anybody? Or
correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, so this is actually within ESG scope of service?
Yeah, as far as the reinstallation, yes.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Okay, the motion and second. Call the question, Dr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Battle?
Yes.
Mr. Deal?
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Mayor votes yes. Next item on the agenda, seeking a more definitive delineation of what the role of the utility board is. And I think we have some policies, but it's you know, what is expected, what is required, and what the charge of the utility board is. I think that needs to be set out with greater clarification. I mean, it comes, and I'm not coming to the board on behalf of the commission. I mean, some of the commissioners said, well, anytime MEAG's involved, we should be consulted. And I don't agree with that, but I think we need to have, my dad used to say, plain talk makes for good understanding. And if we put in writing what the scope and charge of the utility board is, I think that would be advantageous for everyone. Also, for instance, it came up at a recent meeting, so why does the city commission have to approve this? And apparently it was a SPLOST expenditure. And I can understand, since the city commission is responsible for SPLOST funds, why it had to go to the commission, even if it was under $200,000. But I just want to hear what everybody else has to say about this. And if it's a matter that you don't think needs to be addressed, then that's the position of this board. But Mr. Carter, do you want to speak to this?
I can. I did prepare some notes on this. And basically, my notes kind of delineates what's in the section 26 of the city's charter. It establishes the utility board with the mayor as the chairperson. The mayor shall have a voice in all proceedings before the utility board and shall have a vote in each and all matters and proceedings, but no veto. In addition to the mayor, the utility board consists of 4 members elected by the mayor and board of commissioners of the city of Albany from the citizens of Albany to serve 2-year terms. Anyone eligible to hold the office in the city of Albany shall be eligible to be appointed to the utility board. The city and utility board through the city is authorized to own, use, and operate for municipal purposes and for a profit a system of waterworks, electric, light, gas works, stormwater management, technology and communications, including but not limited to fiber optic cable and other technology communications, solid waste, and sewage disposal. The utility board is authorized in conjunction with the city's chief financial officer to set budgets, establish policies, internal controls, and safeguards for the above utilities. The board shall have the power to establish a scale of rates for each of the utility services, make and enforce rules for the collection of the same, adopt rules and regulations regarding the introduction of utilities into or upon any premises, and from time to time regulate the use of such utilities in such a manner that it deemed necessary and proper. The utility board shall have the power to extend the utility services beyond Albany's corporate limits as well as outside of Dougherty County. The utility board is authorized to make and execute purchase agreements for equipment and services for use by Albany utilities that are obligatory and upon will be considered as done by the mayor and the board of commissioners, provided that the purchase is in writing and does not exceed $200,000, and the purchase was recommended and submitted to the by the city manager. Based on the city's charter, it appears that the board has the ability to execute all those things that are centered around the utility. There's a statement in there that says when this board is acting as though the mayor and the board of commissioners have acted, as long as it meets the parameters of what the charter has outlined. There appears to be a tradition that carves out SPLOST purchases as an exception to this rule. Even if it is below $200,000, as the mayor indicated, it still is transferred to the city commission for approval. I'll leave it up to this board to draw your own conclusions from the information that I just presented. I recommend we follow the charter how it's written. However, staff is willing and will execute whatever the board decides. After the board gives us some clear direction, I guess we can either take this over to the city commission and let them know what the recommendation of this board is, or we'll act as this board deems necessary. I'll answer any questions that you may have about what I just said.
Any questions, Dr. Adams?
Yes, I have a statement. It seems to me it's clear what the charter is saying, and very important that they have a ceiling of $200,000. Is that right? 200,000.
That's correct.
I think it's correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we can operate within that 200,000 unless it involves splash funds. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Am I correct? Okay. And the Constitution of the City Council changes from time to time, and you're going to have people who have their own ideas, and sometimes they don't have the foundation for having ideas. But I think the Utility Commission needs to be stable and not changing at the whims of new city commissioners who don't quite understand the operation of the commission. As long as we operate within the $200,000 framework and send over anything that's involved with splash to the commission, I think that's the way it should be. And if it's not maintained like that, we're going to be in a ever-changing situation every time we change city commissioners, with new ideas.
Okay. Ms. Battle, any questions or comments?
No questions, but I agree with Mr. Carter, just going over educating what the charter says to the commission, and I think they will all understand.
Okay. Mr. Deal?
I agree. I think that the charter explains our position very well, and I would not suggest that we change it.
Okay. Mr. Lowe?
Comments would be similar. It seems that the way that the city charter has outlined the responsibility of the utility board, that the utility board is actually a fairly useful tool for the commission and relieves the commission of a lot of work that they would otherwise have to do. So unless there is something particular that needs to be added to it, I think that we have a fairly clear charge.
Okay. Can I just express my concerns? And I'm certainly not advocating changing the charter in any way, but when I say we need there's sort of a gray area here. When I was on the city commission, I mean, the Water, Gas, and Light was considered an independent entity. They made their own budget. I mean, they could give their people a raise. We didn't have money to give our folks a raise. They operated like they wanted to. What is important, I think, is that we understand. I mean, this whole thing about the $200,000, for instance, why does the city commission have to approve it? It doesn't make sense to me, because the general manager of the utility board is the city manager. I mean, and we got the same finance director. So it's not like money's being spent and the other side doesn't know how the money's being allocated. I just think the proper thing to do would be to notify the city commission in a memo, X amount of dollars was spent. If it was SPLOST funds, it's controlled by the referendum how it can be allocated. The other thing is, when there was this reorganization for the utility board took on responsibilities that Water, Gas, and Light didn't have. And I mean, solid waste, sanitary sewer, that was all handled. Am I right about that, Stacy? By the city commission. And I mean, our budget was presented to us, and all the public works, for instance, Dr. Adams was under the utility board. I mean, the city commission, it was not a department under the direct supervision of the commission. And that's why, I mean, there's a lot going on here that there's no written procedures and that's my concern. I don't have the answers. I'm just saying I feel like these additional issues, not what's in the charter, need to be addressed. And if nobody else on the board feels that way, we can just move on. But I just want to share with you what I see as a concern, having sitting on both the utility board and the commission.
Mr. Mayor, I certainly appreciate your concerns, and I can understand that. But it's my understanding that the role of the mayor and the city commissioner was to make policy, and the city manager operated ran the departments and to be held responsible for whatever goes on in those departments. And if mayor and the city council are unhappy with his or her performance, then they can deal with the city manager. But one of the challenges that I encountered when I first went down to the city was to keep each one of the city council persons from trying to interfere or go to departments and try to give instruction to the department heads. Going back to the charter says that the mayor and the council are responsible for making policy, and the city manager is to carry out those policies.
Okay. Well, I mean, let me say this. This is not an issue where a member of the city commission is expressing dissatisfaction with what's going on with the utility board. It is just what I see as a situation that we need clarification. But another thing my dad said is, if you don't start nothing, there won't be nothing. So if this board doesn't feel like we need to do anything, we'll just proceed. Ms. Battle, any comments, questions?
Okay. Well, I agree with what the chart says, and as I said, it seems pretty clear to me. But I, would say Mr. Carter needs to take it back, as he said.
I can't hear you, Ms.
Okay.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry. Yes, I hear you better.
Okay. Well, I agree, Mr. Carter, get back to the commission so that he can answer, after reciting the charter to them, any questions they may have. But I have to add something to Mayor. The community as a whole, the ones that I interact with, are confused with what your role and the commission role should be, which Dr. Adams just clarified. That's what the charter says. But the public is not clear on what your role and the commission is. So I think, with that said, that perhaps our CFO, Mr. Carter, can explain everybody's role so that not only we, the board members on each organization, is clear, but also the public is clear.
Okay. Well, Mr. Carter's read with the charter. I think if it would be agreeable, we'll just take a few weeks and put something together, memorializing what's in the charter, and we'll also identify what I see as issues that are, in my mind, unresolved. But if that's agreeable. Okay.
That would certainly work for me.
Okay. Mr. Deal, any questions or comments?
No, that was going to be my recommendation, that y'all take a look at it and then come back to the board for us to make a decision.
Okay. Mr. Lowe.
same. And I just wanted to, as Mr. Carter identified, SPLOST expenditures were one of the exceptions to the $200,000 limit. And the agenda item talks about delineation of authority for approval. So it seems, number one, are there any other items that are exceptions to that rule? And perhaps I would certainly like to know if there are. And I don't have any problem with exceptions when they're reasonable. And does the commission have some concern over the $200,000 limit? Once again, I think that we help save some time because we do share Mr. Carter, and it's really incumbent upon him for communication between the two bodies. And you certainly sit, Mayor, on both boards. I guess the best idea is to please do memorialize this, put it in writing, and any areas of concern, let's get both bodies to look at it and then come to a decision.
Well, I think there's some misunderstanding here. As I've repeatedly said, I know that my colleagues on the commission have expressed a concern about this. I just frankly have some confusion, having served on both boards. I don't see, for instance, why you have this exception for the $200,000. I mentioned earlier, the general manager of the utility board is the city manager. Mr. Brown, the finance office, is going to be processing this. I just think it's for a authorized expenditure. I think that should be the end of it. And that would further reduce consideration of an issue going before the city commission. So I'm afraid some of my colleagues on this board have taken this issue in the wrong light, because nobody on the commission has expressed dissatisfaction with the utility board. I'm just saying, as chair of the board and the mayor, I think if we had a little bit, but we'll proceed as discussed. We'll have Mr. Carter and the staff come up with something, and have Mr. Davis look at it, and we'll go from there if that's agreeable with everybody.
Yes,
certainly is.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Carter, quick question for you. I think the $200,000 limit was just changed within the last 2 to 3 years. Is that correct? It was increased from what it used to be?
Yes, I think the limit at one point was 1,000. It was increased to 200,000.
Yeah, and what was the limit before? Tell me that again.
100.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
The question I have, Mayor, is should I get with you to kind of get a list of those things that you want addressed, or how should we proceed as far as?
Okay, I'll get you something.
Okay.
And just reiterating, we'll get the minutes, and I think I've expressed some of these issues I need.
Yeah, we can
clarification.
extrapolate those from the minutes,
okay,
and I'll present those to you. If you have anything you want to add, then we'll address that
okay.
as complete list.
But like I say, this is not a pressing issue, but I think for the future, I think it actually would be beneficial. But be that as it may.
Mayor, point of clarification: are you saying that we should have a $200,000 limit, even if it is a SPLOST issue? We should be able to approve it.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Deal, I don't see why do you have that exception, and that's what I'm saying. It's not like the utility board has a different finance office and a different general manager, because our general manager is the city manager, and the city's financial officer is serves the same role for this board. I mean, it's
I have a clarification, Ms. Texman, that prior to the $200,000 limit, there was no limit.
Okay. All right.
I don't think that's right, Mr. Carter, because I was on the board. I think we had a limit and we increased it under Ms. Subadek's term as city manager.
Got here, but I'll do some research on that and make sure we give you the right information.
Okay, thank you.
All right. The next item is an update on the maintenance of catch basins throughout the city. Mr. Rowe.
Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Board members, city manager.
You'll sit your station.
Mayor, you gave that seat up pretty quick.
He did, didn't he? Trying to take it from you.
You give it up quick. Good morning, everyone. Back at the utility board meeting, May 13th, the board asked staff to come back with some information about street sweeping and storm catch basin cleaning and enhanced storm basin cleaning. So that's what we're doing today, is coming back to the board to present this information. Everyone should have received it in their packet. But to go over some of the highlights real quick, as long as we don't have equipment failures, we try to sweep all the 450 miles of streets once per month. And in addition to that, the downtown area, we sweep once every week. So that comes out to, we average sweeping about 5,400 miles per month, as long as the 8 street sweepers are running. Now, with that said, I know some people are saying, well, that's probably not true because my street has fallen behind. We've had some equipment failures. We just received 3 new sweepers that we was able to replace. So with that, we're getting our fleet back going the way it should be, get back on schedule. So we should be catching back up. That's what we're striving to do now, get back completely caught back up on schedule to the monthly route, to where all curb and gutter streets will be swept once a month in the downtown area once a week. Also in your packet, I won't go through all that, but we polled several different cities to see how they operate, and we included that data in there as well. Catch basin cleaning, we have a little over 8,600 storm catch basins throughout the city. We average cleaning about 2,000 of those per year. Plus, on top of that, some of the heavier maintenance ones, we clean them additionally, when we're about to have storm events come through and other items such as that. And also, we polled other cities to see how they handle their situations as well. And you'll see that data in your packet. To give you a little bit of history, we went back through our weekly and daily sheets that we track activities at Public Works, and starting back at 2016, you'll notice in your packet how many catch basins was cleaned, how many feet of storm line that was also cleaned at the time. And most of these years, you'll see it exceeded over the 2,000 feet we tried to target for. And the last thing that we included, the mayor and some of the other board members have expressed concerns and interest in an enhanced catch basin cleaning and what that would cost. And that last sheet, we've included that as well, that shows, all the way up to cleaning every catch basin up to 4 times per year. And it's broke down from there. So we're just bringing all this information back to y'all that was requested. And at this time, I'll turn it back, and me and Mr. Stock are available for any questions that may come up.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Any questions, Mr. Rowe or Mr. Stock? Ms. Battle?
No questions.
Mr. Deal?
None.
Slow?
I'm good.
Okay, I just would like to say that again, I see that what other cities are doing, and I guess we're performing as well or better is in relation to the number of catch basins and how many times with the frequency they're clean. But I would like to see us have some schedule. I was encouraged by this number from 2019 and 2020. It looks you got 4,000 and 5,000 basins cleaned.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then you said but that's inconsistent with the average being 2,000.
The goal is 2,000. Our target goal.
To do more, but the goal is 2,000.
Okay. Well, what I was thinking, if we had a schedule, that's what I want to see, to make sure that every catch basin is cleaned. And if it can't be done annually, then every other year. But I mean, this is a situation of equity, I think, really, because you got neighborhoods where you have disinvestment or most of the people are tenants. And, you know, I just think that this would be but like I say, I was encouraged when I saw the numbers of catch basins which were cleaned in 2019 and 2020.
We'll be happy to do that.
Okay. Anything else?
One thing I would like to add, Mayor, I've implemented several months back. We're now tracking not just through our daily worksheets how many we're cleaning, but I'm having the supervisors actually track them on the map. So that way, you know, every month they get a fresh map and they highlight. That way, if any questions come up, we can actually go pull our maps. I know it's going back old school paper, but there's nothing wrong with that sometimes. So we are doing that now. Okay.
Our GIS department may be able to help you with that.
Oh, yes, sir.
One thing, it's amazing to me. They have 8,600 catch basins in the city of Albany. I mean, but with that, okay, the other matters to come before the utility board. Ms. Battle?
Yes, I'd like to discuss the email that Mr. Stock sent regarding community service and Doherty County jail inmates, if I may.
Okay. Mr. Stock?
Is he there?
I haven't quite sure. She wants to talk about the community service, the email that Ken sent out.
I actually wish I had that in front of me.
That's okay. That's okay. Well, here's what was said, because I remember. Well,
Okay.
I know that you said in the email that Doherty County Jail had not started up since COVID, the use of inmates cleaning around the city. But regarding community service, I was kind of like, okay, looks like their program has started. And you mentioned October 2020 through May of 2021. But one thing that caught my attention, and if Public Works can work with the probation officers or whoever or tell us what we can do, was that the community service offenders are given a choice of where they would like to work. And I know you pointed out in the email that most preferred Teal Park. And I think we all can come up with a conclusion as to why, because they're hidden. Now, they wouldn't be in trouble or having to do community service, I should say, if they weren't in trouble. I think this could accomplish a couple of things. They not be given a choice of where they need to work when we've seen on the news, I think a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago, time release, or in the paper I saw it, where we have certain parts of East Albany that are being used as a dumping ground. So where we're wanting to get code involved, only to, give sanctions on those if we find them. So that's an area that we could use community service in, of course, one. And two, if we bring them from out of Teal Park, not saying Teal Park doesn't help us at a time, but if we could utilize them in the city, which we have a big problem with dumping and, things just not being kept in the city, or to help even our employees, that we might deter some of the youth and some of the old ones that keep repeating where they have community service. This might stop them from doing it. Because I know with my own kids, they don't like to get out in front and clean up, pick up, and they seem quite embarrassed by it. So it might prevent a lot of the repeaters from coming back. And I know it would definitely help our city employees making Albany beautiful again. So if that can be a discussion with the probation office, that would be awesome, so we can get them out here, as quickly as possible. offering to clean for their hours for city.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Battle. Mr. Deal, any other items?
Yes, Mayor, I continue to get complaints, actually more than a few, about the telephone system at the Albany utility. People are saying that they call down there, they can't get an answer, told that their hold time is an hour or more. Leave your number and we'll call you back. And the calls are not being returned. And I feel like that's given us a black eye as far as an image problem, a public relations issue. And I think we're better than that. I think that we need to improve our telephone answering system at the Albany utility. Any comments?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Absolutely, we are working on that. Those are numbers that I look at daily. One of the problems that we have is that the volume of calls versus the amount of people we have that answer calls creates a problem for us. We handle on an average about 1,300 to 1,400 calls per day that come into that line by itself. That's not, just the rest of the city. That's just that 883-8330 number. Unfortunately, I just don't have enough bodies that can handle that volume of calls. So that creates significant hold times, and it does create a challenge for us. We're looking at ways to try to drive people to other avenues to get answers for their questions. We're trying to provide any means necessary, really, to help alleviate some of that backlog. But really, the problem that we face right now on that call, on that number, is just the number of calls that we get. I can't allocate enough people to answer those calls in a way that's going to be satisfactory to everybody. So yes, that is an issue for us. Yes, we're working diligently to try and alleviate that. We put people on calls. Matter of fact, we had a program a while back where, when we were all working from home, a lot of those people that were working from home was allocated to answer phone calls on that line. So yes, sir, I understand. Yes, sir, we're working on it. And I monitor those calls daily. I look at those numbers every day to see where we stand with that. But one of the things, that's, like I said, we're trying to figure out ways to drive people away from that number so that those that truly need to be served on that number can actually get through. But yes, we're definitely still working on that.
Yeah, and Mr. Carter, once again, I'm not being critical, but I feel like that is an area that we can improve our public image, and I think that would go a long way to making people in Albany have a better feeling for the Albany Utility Company.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your comments, and we'll definitely continue to work to drive that down.
I think, Mr. Dill, that's something we need to be critical about, because it's unsatisfactory. And, I get people, they're hot and they write you an email. That's the one problem with email. Somebody is mad as they can be, and then I get folks all the time complaining. But hopefully, Mr. Carter, we can start working to opening 401 Pine and letting people come back in.
401 Pine is open. And
I saw this about you had to have
make an appointment. Yes, sir.
When are we going to be open to the general public without restriction?
Well, that is open to the general public. Everybody can come in. What we're trying to do now is just keep people from, filling the lobby up like we used to.
Yes, sir.
But right now, we get very few appointments requested at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think a lot of our customers just were in the habit over the years that came down here and waited in line, and we all creatures of habit, and I think that's one reason. Yeah. All right, Mr. Deal, we'll continue to work on that. Ms. Lowe.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, before I forget it, Stacy mentioned that we were getting our street sweeping more as running as it used to, and I just wanted to commend him and his team for the work they were doing, because I could tell a big difference once we did get the 3 new street sweepers. So I appreciate all the hard work that they are doing to try to catch up and to help keep things cleaned up. And the other is, or one other is, Mr. Carter, how many, you said that we're averaging now 1,300 to 1,400 calls per day.
Yes, sir.
Is there a large increase from the time before we transition to our new billing system?
Actually not, sir. That's kind of been our average. One of the problems, actually, we have started to decrease. There were a time where we would sometimes get 2,000, and I've even seen a number where we had 3,000 calls in a day. With 15 customer service agents answering calls, that's just no way that we're going to get to those calls. That, we just don't have the bodies in the seats to do it. So I have looked at these numbers. The numbers are starting to go down gradually as we try to introduce more things. But that is just, again, maybe the creature of habit thing here, but that's just where we kind of fall out. And it haven't been a real dramatic increase. There was some when we first made the transition, but now it's back down to where it normally is.
Can help out on the statistics a little bit, Mr. Carter. On the first, our call volume was 2,063 calls. So on the first of the month, the 15th, and on Mondays, we're, kind of getting up closer to that 2,000 number. So we do see peaks on those days.
Yes, sir. Good. See you now.
Okay. I think that was it, Mr. Love.
No, that's helpful. And I was curious, how are we coming on our billing and making sure that our customers' bills are correct that are being mailed out?
I think we're doing well on that. We've gotten caught up now where bills should be in the mailbox when they should be. Now, what happened on this last cycle is when we got caught up, a couple of bills came out close to each other. So I've had a couple incidents where people have said, hey, I've paid this amount, but it still showed on my bill. And that was just a timing issue where the bill, they made the payment after the bill was printed. So that amount still showed on the bill. But we're caught up now. Your bill should, on the next time you get the bill, should be exactly as it should be and delivered in your mailbox when it should be. So I think we're turning the corner on that now.
Okay, very good. Another thing that you and I talked, or we had talked about as a group, when I was asked about hotspots for FaceTime, and you said that you were going to come up with some ideas about actually taking hotspots to those points that people really needed it. And I was curious if you had made any progress in putting something together.
We have made some progress. We're trying to identify, where those places are. We are an internet service provider, and we've already talked to that group about providing that service. Now the problem is, where do you provide the service? So that's one of the things that we're looking at now. How to not can we deploy it, but where do we deploy it? So I want to have that full plan for you before I bring that back to you. Okay,
thank you. And then last item, in our last meeting, we talked about the data center move and transition.
Yes, sir.
And you were going to send us out the timeline and the budget to kind of keep us up to date as to where we were. And for some reason, I can't find where you sent that. If you could provide that to me, I would appreciate it.
I provided to everyone. We just kind of solidified that in the last couple of days, making sure that we had all the pieces in place, making sure we knew where those timelines were, and knowing where those purchases are that's going to have to come before you guys. So we've already got that worked out. Matter of fact, I think I got the final version of that in the last couple of days. But I'll make sure I forward that on to everybody, not just this group, but the city commission also, because I think they're interested in that also.
Right. And well, I appreciate that. And one specific question, though, do we think that we will have transitioned out of the old data center by August?
By this August?
Yes.
Next couple months? Absolutely not, sir.
Okay. Well, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of school or not, but that creates an issue for something else. So thank you for that information.
Okay.
I appreciate it. And that's everything I've got, Mayor.
Okay, thanks. I've got two items here. One item, let me go ahead. We need to start talking about when we're going to return to in-person meetings, and had this discussion also with the city commission. If we're going to have a procedure whereby members can participate remotely, that's fine. But I think there's going to be a declaration that we're no longer in a state of emergency. Most all restrictions have been lifted. And I think we need to start talking about coming back together. And I don't have objection if some members, if the will of this board is to allow members to participate remotely at all meetings, but we just need to have a policy on that. And I think we should discuss that at our next meeting. And then I have two letters here. I'm going to get them to Ms. Williams, and I apologize to the members of the board and also particularly to the utility staff. We have a letter of gratitude from the mayor of Noonan. Some of our linemen went up there in March after they suffered a tornado, and our employees, I think they have been, Ms. Subadan recognized them, but this is a letter, and I'll get back to the mayor. The other letter is from Steve Tumlin, who's the mayor of Marietta, and he's requesting the Albany's support in his efforts to be reappointed to the MEAG board. And I'll also provide that to Ms. Williams, and everybody can see it. But I think, Mr. Lowe, when is that vote, please?
It's supposed to be at the annual meeting, and I think that's the 12th to the 14th in Amelia Island. It's supposed to be in person again. Okay. Are you going to be there? Yes. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get that to you. One thing before. Yes.
I did look through the city charter, the subparagraph 9 that introduced a $200,000 limit came on the 2019 amendment to that charter. Prior to that, there was no limit. Okay.
Okay.
All right. With that, I thank everybody for your attendance, participation,